Hi, my name is Merike and I work for the Central Baltic program. And I was asked to share my thoughts and experiences on how Interreg could be a driver of positive change, even more in the field of sustainability. I remember in the Interreg annual event last October, Natalie from the GBGO said that we all do Green Deal. And I think that is to some extent true, of course, but I think we could do much more actually. So I will share some of my personal experiences and practices from Central Baltic on this topic. Starting with, I think all of us, we know about climate change. And by today, I think we've all seen impacts of climate change in our daily lives. So we don't just have to read about it in faraway news or future reports. And I guess we all have some understanding of what causes climate change and how our personal choices affect it. But I would still like to start with a couple of questions to set the scene. So if you've got a pen and paper or you write it down on your phone, your guess, and then I'll tell you the answers afterwards. So think about the planet and all the mammals. So all the animals and humans living on Earth, and guess how we are distributed by global biomass. So the weight and biomass of mammals. How much might be the share of the biomass between wild mammals, humans, and our livestock and pets? It's so that the livestock and pets make up 62% of the global biomass. Humans, 34%, and wild mammals, a puny 4%. Second question, you may have heard that 10%, the richest 10% of people are responsible for 49%, or basically half, of the lifestyle emissions. But how much do you have to earn to be in the richest 10% of people? The answer is $37,000 per year, or 3,000 euros per month. How many planet Earths do we have? Obviously one, but strangely enough, many European countries live as if we had 2, 3, or 4 planets when it comes to resource use. And last question, we all fly Earth, but how many people in the world have set their foot on a plane? The answer is 1 out of 5. So even though for us, flying seems probably quite an obvious part of our life, we are actually part of the minority. And yet I'm guessing we all are in the 15% of the world's population that causes 70% of the emissions of flying. So I think these questions and answers show that we can be part of the problem, but that also means that we as individuals and as Interreg can be part of the solution. And something that inspires me is that our individual choices, or whatever you go home with, will not just be our personal individual choices, but by leading by example and changing norms in society, we actually have a much wider impact. So we can impact our friends and family, other networks, and through work, we actually can impact the decisions of hundreds and hundreds of people. And if we think about all of Interreg together, then the impact is going to be even wider. And from this perspective, and exactly Green Deal and horizontal principles, we in Central Baltic discussed internally how we do with these principles. And we looked at obviously the program content that we had chosen, but then we also looked at day-to-day choices that our staff and our projects do. And we discussed these, came up with several good tips, which we keep talking about in partner events, and we also put in our guidance and obviously implement ourselves. So a couple of examples of things that we have done is talking about avoiding unnecessary travel, especially flying. If we have to fly, then mitigate those effects by maybe taking less flights or shorter flights, or yeah, less and shorter, and also obviously trying always to use public transport where possible. And then when it's not possible to avoid flying, use CO2 compensation as the last resort. For events, we've talked about things like considering why an event is organized and whether it could be done online possibly, choosing a location that is well accessible with public transport, for catering, going with vegetarian or vegan options, local seasonal products, and minimizing food waste and in general minimizing all waste. Because if we look on the global scale, there are a couple of particularly impactful activities that are very, very resource efficient and also very lead to a lot of emissions. So those are transport, everything that happens with fossil fuels, such as driving a petrol car or flying. Eating, obviously something that we have to do, but eating meat is for resource use and for the climate the worst. And consumption and all use of energy is a huge impact on the environment. So obviously these are the things where we can make the most impactful positive decisions. The good news about wanting to do sustainable choices and decisions is that usually they're also very nicely linked with health benefits, ethical choices, and maybe also living a life that is more purposeful and more sometimes slower, or yeah, maybe I'll just go with purposeful. So whatever motivates you, you will quite likely find that motivation source linked to, or you will be able to link it to sustainable choices, which if I list just a couple of the most important things that we should consider in our lives is to avoid flying, avoid driving regular cars. So instead use public transport and take the bike whenever possible. That's good for the climate, that's good for your health, that's good for community building. We also should be eating more vegetarian or vegan food. Doesn't have to mean that you have to start being a vegan tomorrow, but you can make those choices of eating more of the vegetarian and vegan options. Again, good for your personal health, good for the planet, good for the animals, good for the larger community, most likely. Use green electricity where you have service providers. Buy second-hand options first, or simply just buy less things. Become more aware of why you are buying things and what is your real need. that will also have a lot of positive impacts. And again, you can find what motivates you to make those choices. Another really good tip that I would share is to do a carbon footprint calculator. If you hint to Monica and colleagues then that you're interested, then I can share some of the links of really good calculators that I've used. The point with doing that calculator is that you get an overview of your own life and what choices and practices in your life lead to the biggest environmental impact. And then you can also see tips on how to make better choices in those fields. And that's linked to why I'm talking to you via video, because I did those tests several years ago. And what, for instance, popped out as a big peak in my footprint was flying for holidays, personal travels, and after thinking about that and kind of setting my priorities right and learning about the fabulous choices related to train travel and overland traveling, I've been now in my personal life, I've been flight free for more than 5 years, and I'm trying to take that into my Interreg side of life as well. So I'm really trying to avoid flying whenever possible. And between Riga and Helsinki, where I live, there are superb bus and ferry connections, so absolutely no need to fly, just that I have to be in a meeting this afternoon, and I had to leave already on Wednesday to be in Helsinki for this. So this video is a proof of my personal commitment, and also the fact that I'm quite enjoying the lazy and comfortable bus rides where I could watch a film, possibly do some work, I don't know. So yeah, all kinds of choices are possible, and that's where I will end my talk. So if Monica and colleagues allow, maybe you could take just a couple of minutes to think about what I spoke about and maybe some of those examples of positive changes that you can make in your own life or in your Interreg program. So maybe jot down a few notes, and then when you get back to your day-to-day life and to your program, then maybe something to follow up on. Yeah, so I will leave you jotting it down and wish you a nice and good, inspiring session.